If there is superhero fatigue, one character that denies it is Spider-Man, whose over 20 years of films are mostly box office gold, and further he represents an ever-expanding, highly profitable Spider-Verse. Yet there is more to this story. The Peter Parker you know exists as a superhero escaping near demise and repeatedly finding redemption. But behind the scenes is a far more complicated fiasco of business decisions, shaping Spider-Man's path in a way many could find disturbing, but inquiring minds could find intriguing. This exploration begins unironically with Tony Stark, famously Spider-Man's mentor Iron Man, but underneath is a massive offer to Robert Downey Jr. by Sony to appear as Iron Man with Spider-Man, and for good reason. A mere 5 years before, director Jon Favreau hired the talented but high-risk RDJ to play Iron Man, a character at the time no one cared about. Marvel had staked their entire company on the movie and won. RDJ's Iron Man had soared, and so it would seem joining Spider-Man was a no-brainer, but the truth is far more complicated. When Iron Man hit theaters in 2008, Spider-Man was unstoppable, but afterwards Spider-Man had faltered, and its sequel to the reboot had left audiences puzzled. What audiences did not know is that this was a symptom of something far more dangerous than confused storytelling, and explains the call to Tony Stark. Famously, Sony owned the rights to Spider-Man as long as they kept making movies, but director Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man was an instant classic, so popular that it was being used by Marvel as the template for Iron Man and their expanding universe. When Raimi walked after being disappointed in his experience with Spider-Man 3, Sony had a massive problem, which is summed up in a most unlikely name: Ben Parker. How could Ben Parker be the problem? The answer is simpler than you might think. Ben Parker's story had appeared twice on screen in 10 years, and while audiences loved Ben Parker, they did not need to hear his story again. Sony was about to make one of two decisions no one saw coming. The first being to forego the Ben Parker story altogether, reducing the character to initials on a suitcase, and the second being an uncomfortable partnership they had avoided for over 15 years. Foregoing Ben Parker's story was a gigantic risk, but to hedge against this absolutely insane decision, they cut a deal with Robert Downey Jr. to appear. But this offer and hoped-for payoff put them in a tremendously difficult position. Paying for Tony Stark meant partnering with the character's owner, the Walt Disney Corporation, who would keep merchandising profits. But this was exactly what Spider-Man needed. Tom Holland's Spider-Man focused on how Tony Stark hand-selected him and took him under his wing, starting in Captain America: Civil War. And an entirely new generation of theater-goers loved the pairing. Not only did the new Spider-Man movie see a return to form, but Spider-Man became integrated into the MCU, and the run of movie profits was unique to history. Audiences loved the story, and Sony, profiting from theatrical and Disney from merchandise, had threaded a return every studio dreams of. Not only was the profit incredible, but Peter Parker humanized Tony Stark and provided one of the most touching send-offs ever on screen, meaning Parker now had the Tony Stark story and the Ben Parker story. And so it might seem then that Sony had found redemption for their character Spider-Man, and all was well. Their decision to partner with Disney had left audiences clear on who the character was. Sony had revived and grown their multi-billion-dollar franchise, and audiences saw a Spider-Man that was both fun and a character they deeply related to. But now audiences were looking to Sony for a post-Avengers Endgame story, and not even Sony knew what Spider-Man was about to mean for the world, nor that they would combine strategies that would put Spider-Man on top in a completely unique way. The second strategy was seizing one of the most powerful opportunities in cinema history, which we will get to, but the first play was a brilliant decision no one could have predicted, which finds its context in 2002. In the wake of the national disaster September 11th, the Spider-Man movie release date was first delayed, but when finally released in 2002, it made Spider-Man a kind of North Star for the United States, a hero showing resilience when everyone needed it. 20 years later, with Tony Stark gone, Sony adeptly found a new Tony Stark insert. The two former Spider-Mans emerged and would meet Tom Holland to give Spider-Man another boost. But combined with the global disaster of the pandemic and lockdowns, two well-understood strategies combined for a grand slam home run in the box office, with nearly $2 billion in box office receipts, and cemented Spider-Man again as an American icon. And this alone might have made audiences ready for another Spider-Man movie. But there was one more gigantic reason that Spider-Man would continue his run as the most popular character. And it comes back to that fateful decision to cast Robert Downey Jr., and interestingly also has a tremendous amount to do with another character, Thanos. Before the Tony Stark insert, Spider-Man was on the ropes, but with the post-Endgame Marvel, it was Disney who saw underwhelming performances with newly introduced characters. The original Marvel Cinematic Universe may have had billion-dollar box offices guaranteed, but aside from Deadpool and Wolverine, only one memorable character thrived, who was also the only one left from the original MCU, Peter Parker. In an interesting turn of events, the Disney Marvel Cinematic Universe had crowned Sony's character as the inheritor of the post-Endgame era. While Disney sought to point to new stories, Parker was like the audience, still suffering from losing the old characters, and also like the youth watching a world move on from the pandemic, which they still remembered. There are claims of superhero fatigue, but it seems the audiences are there. They are simply looking for the hope that they found in the previous era. This is the potential Spider-Man is given, a potential for greatness, not simply as a cash machine, but also as a cultural unifier, helping provide moral guidance in a confusing world and be representative of everyone's story. While profit and business are real underlying factors, his relatability might just be the real secret. This result is so broad-reaching that it has allowed him to extend his brand into new universes. Some successful, others less so. One thing is for certain, whether profit, story, or hope, when he's needed, he appears. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This is Moreau.